Hello, everyone, and welcome to this iMagazine video. In this video today, we're going to take a look at some data that may suggest that we are already in a recession. Joining us today is Nick Mazing, Director of Research at Sentieo. Nick, many thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Tim.
So we've been hearing a lot about how we are headed for a recession, with interest rates going up and growth slowing. And we're seeing that feed through into company announcements, for example, with Snap's announcement, which hit the whole advertising sector today. But Nick, you've been looking through the data. And so what are you seeing and how far down the path to a recession do you think we are at the moment?
We looked at several data sets, and certainly it's concerning, both in the corporate sector and the consumer sector. So in the corporate sector, one thing we noticed is that for several months now, we're seeing an increase in transcripts that just mentioned the word recession. And we're right now almost at April 2020 levels. Now, you remember this was basically the depth of the COVID shock. In addition to this, a number of prominent retailers reported last week, and they had multi-decade drops in their stock price upon the results. Now, obviously, we're talking Walmart, Target, TJ Maxx, Ross Stores, Home Depot, and so on. The bigger story, in my opinion, is actually their inventory levels. Inventory levels, and I looked at the average of their days inventory, in case you're an accounting enthusiast, you know what this is. In case you're not, days inventory is not the gross dollar level of inventory, but rather inventory in relationship to sales. It is at a very, very high position as of April 30, because retailers have a fiscal year end that's in January, so their quarter is a month later. So we have very fresh data that points to very high inventory levels. Now, the specific could be around the wrong mix, but the reality is we're lapping the stimulus payments, and we've had very high inflation, and consumers really are worried. And looking at the consumers, which is the 70% of the US GDP, we're seeing that searches for recession look just like the transcripts. There was a big spike during COVID, and they're accelerating again. In addition to this, when you look at other data, such as the consumer sentiment survey, you can see it never really recovered to the pre-COVID levels, and now it is at multi-year lows. And I have overlaid this with searches for inflation and stagflation. Stagflation was almost not a topic, and now it is actually a big topic. And when you combine concern in the corporate sector and concern on the side of consumers, you can really kind of paint a picture that is worrisome, I would say. And then finally, a lot of people are looking at the strength of the labor market, a very low unemployment. Labor tends to be a lagging indicator. And when you look at what is actually happening on the margin, we had a very strong labor market in 2021. And there was one trend that we spotted in Google, which was searches for sign-on bonuses. And that really took off during 2021 as companies were competing for labor. But now we've had announcements for a number of technology companies that are doing layoffs or hiring freezes and so on. So you're actually seeing that on the margin, interest in sign-on bonuses is declining, which indicates, in my opinion, almost a real-time weakening of the labor market.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Nick. Yes, so lots of indicators there, both on the corporate side and on the individual side, that we're either very close to or sort of currently in a recessionary environment. Although it will take a while for the economic data to confirm that. And I just had one more question for you. Under current conditions, when there's so much negativity out there related to the outlook, I mean, is there any way that companies can sort of reassure investors, or how should companies be approaching those conversations with investors at the moment?
Maybe the COVID playbook should be out in play, where companies were much more forthcoming with information and direct steps that they were taking. And in some cases, when you think about a company that, let's say there were some market doubts about pricing power, with the rates of inflation that we're seeing right now, it's open seasonal pricing. So obviously great opportunity for companies to flex their pricing power, which could be latent, it could have existed. It's a great opportunity. And in some cases, there are companies that might be actually beneficiaries from some of the trends that we're seeing, like raising rates. So, for example, rates may be bad for housing, they may be bad for mortgage origination. But if you look at financial institutions, if the assets are getting repriced at a faster rate than the liabilities are, they are actually in a good position.
Fantastic, Nick. So yes, there's not a lot that companies can do when they're, their share prices are getting hit, for example, across the whole sector. But there are some types of things they can be talking about, ways that they can be positioning themselves, which could, help keep them in good stead as we go through this difficult period. But we'll leave it there for today. Nick, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insights with us.